Welcome to the Firebelly Social Show. We're focused on talking to food and beverage brands that are on a mission to make the world better.
Hey, everyone. Duncan here with another episode of the Firebelly Social Show, where we dive into the stories of leaders and founders behind mission-driven food and beverage brands. So if you love hearing about brands that are making an impact, you're in the right place. Before we jump into today's conversation, I want to thank you for tuning in to the show. This episode is brought to you by Firebelly Marketing. At Firebelly, we specialize in helping food and beverage brands create vibrant online communities and get deeper connections with their audience through social. If your brand is ready to level up its strategy, visit firebellymarketing.com. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Ketan Vakil, founder of Gourmend Foods, to the show. Ketan, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good to see you.
So excited. I'm hoping that my voice cooperates. So, Ketan, you've got a background in marketing and user experience. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. My first job out of college was doing HTML programming for a small agency. Super fun. Then got myself into web analytics, UX over there. I left that company, moved to New York City, worked for a startup doing like local search marketing stuff. And then I moved to American Express where I led acquisition marketing, UXy, kind of all innovation fun stuff over there. Left and started my own consulting group to work with all sorts of companies, large and small. So I've been doing marketing for a long time before I got into the food stuff, but it's been helpful.
And your journey is like many founders who decided to respond to a need and a challenge that they were having specifically. And so in your case, it was a stomach challenge and something that you struggled with since a teenager. So let's get into that a little bit. What happened and how has it played out?
Yeah. Probably since about 15, 16 years old, would eat healthful things and not feel super great. My father's a doctor, so he took me to his doctor friends, tried to figure out what it was. Never came to an answer. Continued all through college. I would go and do colonoscopies and try medicines, and nothing really. Like what are we doing here? You eat some apples and you don't feel very good. It's just so random. Eventually, I stumbled on some research that highlighted this notion of a FODMAP, which are just simple sugars that are in lots of different healthy ingredients. And I'm in New York City. I went to Mount Sinai, asked them for this specific test to like check for this thing. And they stuck me in this back room and I drank these weird beverages for like 6 hours and basically determined that, yeah, I'm sensitive to these different categories of carbs that are really in lots of different foods. And once I started adjusting how I ate, based on that, I felt so much better. It's like just that knowledge is power, right? You don't have to cut it. It's not an allergy per se. It's a sensitivity. So I learned to adjust myself and my eating behavior so I wouldn't just be randomly sick all the time.
And I should say to our audience, when Ketan and I first started talking, I have found myself in the same position. So dealing with digestive issues that I didn't want to ignore anymore. And I think that seems to be a theme, though, Ketan. Have you seen that with other people as well?
I really think it is. I think people just ignore it. I think men actually ignore it more than women. Most of our customers are women and they skew older. So I think it's like when people have a little more time, they're maybe not working as hard in their 20s. Now maybe I should pay attention to this. And I have some money now. I'm going to go and figure out what's going on. I'm going to eat right, buy the right things for myself. I really think that's a really important trend. But it's unfortunate, right? Because why should you be living through your 20s, 30s, 40s with these kind of problems? It's quote easy to solve them if you know what's going on. So there's no point living like that.
It's interesting because even though it is a Western problem in many ways, I think, but yet so many people are unaware of it. And even so, let's start out by like a very simple question: what is a FODMAP?
Yeah, the easiest explanation is they're just simple carbohydrates, different categories of them that exist in all different sorts of natural foods. And so there's a huge, longer scientific explanation we don't have to get into, but they're very high. FODMAP content is very high in common ingredients like garlic bulbs, onion bulbs, apples, asparagus, just really random things. You think, oh, I just had a bowl of a big bowl of strawberries and some apples, and now I feel like crap. Like, why would that be, And so it's knowing which ingredients have these things in which categories. It's all different categories of these FODMAPs and figuring out for yourself which ones are the triggers for you. You don't have to cut out everything. But for me, fructans, that is very high in garlic and onion bulbs and garlic and onions and pretty much everything. So you go out to eat, it's in everything. It's in every sauce, it's in every packaged food. So that's a big challenge, but it's awesome. It tastes great, right? So you don't want to just remove it.
My learning curve has been so great because it's also a issue of quantity sometimes.
Yes.
You have a smaller quantity and you're okay. And if you have a medium quantity, maybe you're okay. Or you have a large quantity and you're done, right? So it's and I was looking at some of your materials. It's fructose, lactose, mannitol, sorbitol. Is it GOS or GOS? I don't know how you say it.
Yeah, Gio, as galacto-oligosaccharides is the long but short GOS. Yeah, which is that one. So beans, like legumes, are high in that category. Lactose is easy to deal with because you can take lactate, and most people that works just fine for. Um, yeah, but some of these other categories are harder to deal with.
So that's and you were going through this and you were like, hey, people with this condition or you're dealing with this kind of like sensitivity really need certain foods. And thus was your company born.
That's the company was born. Yeah. So, once I realized garlic onion was going to be a problem, I started basically I figured out that other parts of the allium plants are lower in these FODMAPs. So while you can't have garlic bulbs, you can have garlic scapes, these like curly things that grow out of the plant once a year. So you got to really watch them. So I would go to the farmer's market here, buy a ton, freeze them for all year so I'd have them, that kind of stuff. And I started making broths out of this stuff because when you cook really anything, right? You're making a pasta dish, a stew, a soup, whatever. You need broth. So I was using that stuff instead of onions and garlic. Garlic scapes, the tops of scallions, tops of leeks, chives, like they're great ingredients that you don't use. You don't see some of them you don't see as often around the country that I started. And I was lucky to be in New York. We kind of like cool farmers would have some of this stuff. But once I figured that out, I was like, geez, there's a lot of people out there like me. Almost a billion people have irritable bowel syndrome. But even if you take, most people aren't diagnosed with that also is the issue. But the stats show 2 out of 3 Americans say they have a digestive challenge weekly. So the population, the addressable market here is huge of people that have a problem. They may not know it's this FODMAP thing, but we're saying we've got delicious, gentle things for you. And if you really, look at the fine print, you'll understand, oh, interesting, here's why it's more gentle on you. So we've replaced the garlic and onion with other plant parts that taste just as good. So it's still an awesome, tasty product, but it's much gentler on you.
And you named it, I didn't say this at the beginning, you named it
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my friend Stephanie helped me. We spent about 8 months thinking about a name for this thing. I didn't want to put FODMAP in the name of it. I thought it was a little too limiting, and it's like to me, these are great products I want anybody to have. So gourmet, hopefully it's obvious, like gourmet products that mend your health, mend your gut health, really mend all your health, because it's not just about the gut. It's also about our stuff's unsalted. It's organic. It's just really great for you overall. No weird fillers or additives at all. Like you see in a lot of health foods, you look at the gluten-free category, there's so much junk in a lot of those products. So we really wanted to be super, super clean. So it really does mend your overall.
And I love that you pointed that out that, I mean, in general, if you look deeper into product ingredient lists, there's a lot of troubling things in there. But you wouldn't think that gluten-free, well, it's gluten-free, so it must be good for me. And then if you look deeper in, there's all kinds of things in there that are not actually good for you.
Yeah, there's so much hidden salts and sugars and maltodextrin, yeast extract. There's all sorts of crap and a lot of better quote better for you products that are out there. So you really do have to look, and this stuff can spike your blood sugar. Like, yeah, okay, yeah, maybe it's not hurting my stomach, but it's doing this other thing that's a little more invisible. So I really wanted to take that super seriously.
As I've gotten into some of the foods in this category, there are some very interesting names. And the one that stood out to me, or some of the ones that stood out to me, as you said, FODMAP Foods, FODBODS,
Yeah.
FODified,
Wow.
FODUP, FODZyme. So there's a few, of course, none of them may be as memorable as Dr. Pooh. So, but going back to yes, I think the name is fantastic. I mean, it to me,
Oh,
it's you
thanks.
have good food and you can also mend your gut. And actually, I'm a customer as well, so I've got my for the people that are watching on YouTube, I've got the garlic scape powder here. It is very tasty and it's a great replacement. Um, so I was going to ask you, when you were launching, you were thinking about your mission. You know, what is your mission?
Yeah, I mean, I started this originally to help people with stomach challenges. Like that was the primary mission, and do it in a way like we were just talking about, do it in a way that was really responsible, um, both to the person's entire health and their whole body, so good quality stuff with great ingredients, but also trying to be a good steward to the planet. We're B Corp certified. We do a really serious job on sourcing. Everything's domestically sourced right now, except for our glass bottles because no one will sell them to us here. But all the actual food is domestically sourced. The sort organic. And actually, not everything's organic, but the stuff that's not, like our garlic chives that we get from a great farm in New Jersey, they're a regenerative farm. They're too small to go for organic certification, but you could argue it's even better. He doesn't spray anything, no organic fertilizers even, which is awesome. So just really trying to find really good stuff. So I think, we offset our carbon. We try to do what we can to do the best that we can given the resources we have to source and treat the planet properly while also making really high quality stuff. So I think, yeah, clearly the mission was first health, stomach health, gut health, but then also do it in a responsible way. Supply.
And the flavors are great. I mean, I've had
Yeah,
the
yeah,
taco seasoning and the onion the green onion powder. I mean, the flavor is great. And when I was selling it, I cooked with it last night, and when I was selling it to my wife and my son, I didn't say anything about the product. All I said was
yeah,
the flavor is going to be amazing. I never brought it up, and I was like, "Well, it's good for me. It's good for them. It's good for everyone." So I think the fact that it's flavor, good for you and great for the planet. That's really admirable.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
the first product.
First product was the one, yeah, the garlic scape powder was the first product. Um, I launched it, must have been like June during COVID. So we got it. I got it in. I had a little warehouse in Brooklyn. I was driving there. No, nobody's on the road. It was like the craziest time to go pick it up. We packed, we packed. It was so the certifying body, Monash University for FODMAP, they had announced it. Everyone was home, I guess, in those days. We sold 100 bottles like in one night of that product. That's really never happened again. It was crazy. So we're packing like these little cubes boxes. And it was fun. I live in a building with a doorman, so I had this huge bundle of boxes. They're like, what is going on? Like trying to convince the postman to take all this stuff. But it was fun. And then the chicken broth came shortly after. And we could talk about founder challenges, but that product was a great product out the door, but the packaging helps with the weird problems. So it's been a journey, that's for sure.
And the sourcing, I know you were just talking about that. That is such a critical part of the equation. What's that been like? I mean, it's not just sourcing, it's sourcing with purpose.
Yeah, sourcing with purpose. The garlic scape, I mean, that's such a cool product. That's the one I mentioned. They're only available a few weeks a year. So I connected with an organic growing partnership in the Midwest. So they partner with a bunch of different small organic farms, and we would collect a whole bundle of these garlic scapes, and send them. This product's so hard to make. They get harvested, and we drive them to get frozen, IQF frozen, and then eventually they get freeze dried and they get milled into the powder. Um, so yeah, we were actually fortunate, I think, because a lot of the farms, the restaurants had pulled back over COVID buying all this stuff. So they were happy to grow for us, which was cool, or to sell to us. And even still now, even though restaurants have come back, I think there's a lot of cool farm partnership opportunities. Finding the other players along the way, that's still a challenge. Who's going to do custom dehydration, custom freeze dry? I'm not doing 1 million pounds of it. A lot of people don't want to work with you if you're doing smaller amounts. So yeah, it's tricky.
It really has been a labor of love, especially starting anything at COVID. I mean, we started our creative studio during COVID and we couldn't get our
Nice.
first job. We're like, we got all this stuff, no one's going to hire us. That must have been a difficult time, and what a labor of love. Um, Someone like you and me, who comes from a multicultural family, and you live in New York, which is, maybe one of the top foodie cities in the world.
Yeah.
What's that been like, doing that in New York, and how has it affected, I guess, the cross-cultural background that you even come from? How has that affected your choices with the products?
Yeah, what a good question. I mean, yeah, like we talked about before we hopped on, I'm half Indian, so I grew up having robust flavors. My family loves to cook, and I didn't want to lose that element when I learned I had to kind of eat this different way. So that was a huge impetus for starting this. Yeah, living in New York really helped get this started because I was able to go. I knew to get some of these ingredients, I had to work with farms. So it was great. I could just go to Union Square and there's 100 awesome farms there. And I, just started to build some of those relationships to get some of those early products. Now we don't buy everything that way, but some of those really custom things we do. And then obviously we have so many great restaurants, so it inspires me. Like, what's the next thing we should make? What's a cool flavor? Or what's this? Oh, I didn't even know this ingredient existed. Let's use that for something.
So
Like
I'm
I
gonna
found
put,
out. Yeah.
I'm gonna put myself into this question because I know that there's others like me. So, someone like me who's relatively new to dealing with, bowel related sensitivities, um, how do you go about building up your pantry of spices, right? Because we should all be rethinking our spices in general because of all the revelations about impurities,
Um,
spices, and
yeah.
where they're coming from. There's the dynamite and the salt, all this stuff, right? But
Yeah.
take it one step further. Now we have to build a pantry with our food sensitivities in mind. And your company is one of the great resources to find some of these things. But how do you suggest people go about building up a pantry like that?
Yeah, spices. Well, the cool thing with spices is really on the spice category, the only tough ones for the stomach issue are the garlic and onion powders. And that's why we started there. And then the blends, right? So if you're going to get a taco blend or a barbecue blend, or of course they're going to have garlic and onion powder in them. So, we start with garlic and onion powder replacements, and then we do a taco blend. And we on my list of things to do is to make more fun blends using our bases. Because there's other brands out there that do them, but they remove the garlic and onion, so you don't that essence is sort of missing, but you can get it back with our stuff if we make more blends. But there's just a couple of great companies. I like Burlap and Barrel is an awesome spice company. They've got really cool single origin source stuff. We use some of their stuff in our taco blend. Rancho Gordo is another fun one to get. Just finding these companies that are sourcing stuff in a really great way. Like check out their story, see how they're sourcing. Diaspora. There's a lot of cool ones out there. So that's how I do it on the pantry side, at least in the spice category. The the non-spice category, I think it's really buying. You got to learn how to cook, right? It's really buying fresh stuff. You're gonna buy your own meat, your own fish, your own produce, fruit, vegetables, whatever it is. Knowing, like we talked about, the serving sizes, what's good, what's gonna work for me, what's not, and then making your dish from scratch. You can use pantry staples like ours. If you need a broth, make your own. It's not that hard. Or if you don't have the time because it is annoying to do it, you use something like ours. Use our spices to mix in. Use other great spices that are out there. But I think for the people who don't like to cook, or I think it's harder for that population. And there are companies out there that will send, like you mentioned, Modify Health, right? They'll send you a meal kit of sorts. But Gourmand's all about teaching you and loving of cooking. So, and I
Love.
started with broths and seasonings really for that reason, because I don't think you can make anything without those two, but you can kind of make everything with those two also. So that's why we started there.
And there really is, it took me um, drinking broth by itself to
Yeah.
to learn this, that there's a whole world of broths, and not all of them are good.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Not all of
Absolutely.
them are good. Some of them, the flavor profile is non-existent. Some of them it's too much. Some of them there's other things in it. So we really do. Speaking of which, what role does education play in Gourmand's, I guess, like, life and in its daily functioning? How much emphasis do you place on education?
Yeah. A huge one. I think at the outset, I'd say 80% of our weekly emails are educational in nature, highlighting a cool study, or did you know, or here's tips for cooking, or here's this, here's that. and not the here's a sale, here's another sale, here's a product, here's like just really keeping educational. And our site has some cool. We wrote, I mean, I worked with a writer and a dietitian. We wrote an 8,000 word ode to what are FODMAPs just to educate people. And if you really spend the time and read that, you don't need to spend all this money going to doctors and stuff. Just read that. It's really the best resource on the web about it. We have an ingredient list out there. We've done a lot as much as we possibly can do to educate because I mean I know that a lot of people would benefit from knowing what this is all about. Um, so yeah, the education really flows through everything we're doing. Same on social. A lot of our posts are educational over there too. So
I,
it's
lo-
huge.
I
Yeah,
love that you called it an ode.
it really was. That document is insane.
Well, how would people find that document?
Just on our site, gourmandfoods.com, we have a learn section, and it's I think it's called Low FODMAP 101, something like that. It's got 10 sections, and you could spend all day reading it. People have asked us to turn to an ebook PDF, but I haven't done it yet.
So what's really fascinating to me is that you're not just dealing with a very specific niche within food. You have to re-educate people on some kind of like misnomers that they may have, and like looking at ingredients and like how to cook and the fact that you should cook. Um, and in addition to that, you still got to be a founder in the food space.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot. And this business is bootstrapped so far, so we don't have millions of dollars to pour into, all the things I know I would love to do, from an educational perspective. But there are other brands out there that are larger, so we're all playing our part in building this education. But like I told you, I'm also not hanging our entire hat on the SpotMap thing. I think that's why I started it. But like you said, like your family didn't know or care. It's just a great broth. It's a great spice. Whatever. It's for everybody that cares.
That's super cool. I'll give a shout out to, I think I was telling you the story via email, but I'll give a shout out to my friend Rito, Dr. Rito Mitra, and his wife Pam. We were in India uh, earlier last month and sitting around and just, shooting the breeze. And I was telling her about my struggles, and she says, "Well, what do you have?" And so I mentioned, and she goes, "I have the same thing." And
Yeah.
that was how I kind of leapfrogged forward in a relatively short amount of time to learn about the Monash app. And
Uh-huh.
you all are certified. I mean, I download the app. I'm looking at the foods, and I immediately reconnected with our conversations from earlier
Oh,
in the
that's
week.
what triggered it. That's so funny.
So, shout out to Pam. And she said that the challenge she faced, she's been dealing with it for 8 years, didn't know what it was, didn't know how to deal with it. So it really is, an awesome mission that you have. What are some of the other kind of founder challenges that you've run into?
It's really supply chain is the biggest one. We're in this state where we're too small for some and too big for others. Like, who's going to produce this stuff at the quality that we require as we grow? Um, yeah, I mean, even, I wasn't able to source as much garlic scapes this year as I really would have liked. They're hard to get. So it's really a lot of pre-planning and figuring out where this stuff's going to come from. Getting I'd like our stuff to be less expensive for people. But that comes down to, well, where are we going to source it from responsibly? Like when we looked into trying to source from Asia. I just couldn't do it in the end because the organic paperwork, it's just not there. And then you don't really know. That's like what you were talking, you just don't know what you're going to be getting then.
That's
Um,
interesting. I don't know if you've ever come across a brand called Spicewell, and the founder is Reina Kumra, and just a multi-faceted, highly accomplished woman. And she said the same thing. She said that it is crazy how careful you have to be about which countries you're sourcing from, because
yeah,
the oversight and the compliance is just not there. And so sometimes, you can't source spices from the land of their origin, like ancient origin. You can't. You have to like look to
yeah,
compliance. So
yeah.
it's interesting. Now, what about you, Kitten? What do you do to take care of yourself? You're a
Good
busy
question.
a busy guy. You're involved with marketing. You're involved with running this company. You've got a family. Like, how do you take care of yourself?
No, I try to go running every morning. I didn't today, but most mornings. I'm learning guitar. I figure let's take up a hobby that has nothing to do with. I was like, oh, it could be cooking, it could be knife skills or I'm like photography. It could all. That's all semi-work related. So I did guitar, and, so that's been good. I cook. I think cooking is relaxing for me. I try to go out to a restaurant like myself once a week ish. So those kind of like just chill, trying to be chill a little bit.
That's wonderful. The cooking for me, I have to be careful with it. The feedback I receive from my family sometimes is like, "Hey, you're a little bit too intense about it. It doesn't matter if there's a spot on the plate. It
Oh,
doesn't
it's
matter
so
if
funny.
so." Um,
Oh,
but
my partner, yeah, she said that she's like, we don't have to make 2 hour dinners every night. Like, yeah, but I like to do it. What's it?
it's a creative outlet, right? And it's
Yeah,
also in the life of a founder where the work, seemingly is never done. It's you have a concept, you go do it, and then you do the dishes and you're done, right? And so
yeah, it's so true. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's like, yeah, I can like check this fully off the list. Yeah,
and then was it a success? Was it a failure? And usually they're not failures, right? And so it's usually at the worst, it's like mediocre. So
yeah. It's like, oh, I should have added more salt or whatever. Yeah, yeah,
now with the guitar. Uh,
yeah.
are you learning songs? Are you learning to read music?
It's a little mixture of both. My teacher's pretty cool. We're doing like the normal like chords and what do you call them, scales and all that. But then I'm also bringing some of my favorite, stuff in to mess around with. And yeah,
Well,
we're
that's
good.
that's super cool. Now, what about what are you dreaming about next for Gourmand?
Oh, I have so many dreams and thoughts. So I mean, most of the business is online still, so we're really making a more concerted push into retail to see if we can win over there. So Erewhon just launched the chicken and vegetable broth, which is super cool. Thanks.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and we've been in Mom's Organic for about a year, and they just took our vegetable broth too. So we got the broths are making their way central market. So we're sort of handpicking these foodie havens, people who again care about products that they're buying and finding those stores first. Even though I've been advised, oh, try to grow. I'm in New York, try to grow your region, but I'm like, I don't know. I feel like there's stores that the shopper will care about us more than others, and they're all over the place, which is annoying, but kind of that's just the way it is. I always have new ideas for products. I'm messing around with turning our chicken bone broth into a powdered version. That would be the exact same clean label, which all the other powdered broths are really, really junky. We were actually gonna freeze dry the original broth, turn into a powder. You just add it to water. It'd be super cool, much lighter to ship around, so more environmentally friendly.
I love.
Take it camping, take it on the plane, whatever. So I don't know. We might do a little bit of release on that and kind of see what happens. There's another cool plant out there that um, kind of worked on with Rose Seven Seeds as part of the Stone Barn Center up here and Cornell. It's like this cool partnership called Garlic. It's this cross between garlic and a leek plant, and we want to like test that and see if there's something fun we could do with that. I don't know. More spice blends. There's no lack of ideas. It's just how to get it all done.
And do you ever just wake up in the middle of the night and you just run out to the living room and you like write the idea down?
Yeah, yeah. By the bedside.
That's amazing. Well, I really appreciate the support that you've offered me, even in this short time. I really appreciate that, and I love what you're doing for people. It's just such a great example of you as a founder bringing your journey to other people, at great personal cost and with all the belief and making the world better. So I just want to thank you.
Oh, thank you for saying that. Yeah, there's really without that passion, there's really no way in this. I mean, I'm sure you heard this from other folks you talked to. There's no other way you can do this, I think.
Yeah, and I think in many ways you end up paying for your beliefs, right? You pay to give
Yeah,
other people the opportunity, which I think is what a lot of people don't realize. And it doesn't matter if they do or not, but you're
yeah,
doing it, so that's really phenomenal. Would love to have you come back sometime and do
anytime.
another episode, maybe with Dr. Pooh. So
There we go. Nice.
This has been a great conversation, Ketan. Ketan Vakil from Gourmand Foods. His story is such an inspiration. It's incredible to see what you've done with the company and how you're strategically growing and making gourmet cooking more accessible for people like me with dietary restrictions. So, everyone who's listening, if you want to bring flavor back to your kitchen without compromising on your health, check out gourmandfoods.com. They're on socials as well. Ketan, what are the handles on social?
Yeah, just at Gourmand Foods, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, etc. And if anyone listening feels like the stomach story sounds like you, just email me and we can talk. Ketan at gourmandfoods.com. Happy to help you through it, teach you how to cook a little differently. Send me your favorite recipe. I'll help you change it around. Yeah.
And not only that, he's on LinkedIn. He's very accessible. So please do check out gourmandfoods.com and Ketan at gourmandfoods.com. And remember, the Firebelly show is brought to you by Firebelly Marketing. If you're a mission-driven food or beverage brand, we'd love to hear from you. Love to have you on the show. Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, share this episode with a friend. Until next time. Thank you for listening. And thank you so much again, Ketan, for coming on the show. It's been really great, and I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Super fun.
All right, everyone. See you on the next one.
Thanks for listening to the Firebelly Social Show. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.